Think of the last time something bothered you that you couldn't change. A decision that went wrong, a relationship that ended badly, something you lost that you kept reaching for anyway, knowing it was gone. You probably did one of two things. You either kept turning it over, replaying it, re-examining it, looking for the angle where it made sense, where it was someone's fault, where something could still be done. Or at some point you let it go, not because it stopped mattering, but because you recognized, quietly and without fanfare, that holding it wasn't helping, that the grip itself was the problem. That second move, that release, is what both Stoicism and Buddhism spent centuries trying to teach. They called it different things. They built completely different cosmologies around it. They came from opposite ends of the ancient world, spoke different languages, worshipped different gods, and had no documented knowledge of each other's existence. And they arrived at the same conclusion about human suffering: what causes it, what sustains it, and what it takes to set it down. The fact that two traditions this far apart found the same answer might be the most important thing philosophy has ever quietly discovered. Here is what Marcus Aurelius and the Buddha actually agreed on, and where they finally parted ways. Start with the distance, because the distance is the point. Epictetus was born around 50 AD in what is now Turkey. He was a slave. He lived under Roman rule, studied under the Stoic philosopher Musonius Rufus, and eventually became one of the most influential teachers in the ancient world. Marcus Aurelius was born in 121 AD, Roman emperor, military commander, one of the most powerful men who had ever lived. He read Epictetus. He kept a private journal, never intended for publication, in which he wrote his attempts to actually live the philosophy. That journal survived. We call it Meditations. The Buddha was born Siddhartha Gautama somewhere around 563 BC in what is now Nepal, a prince by most accounts. He left his palace, spent years in extreme ascetic practice, then sat under a fig tree in Bodh Gaya and meditated until something resolved. He spent the remaining 45 years of his life teaching what he found. Between the world of Epictetus and Marcus Aurelius and the world of Siddhartha Gautama, several thousand miles of land, at least 5 centuries of time, and no evidence of direct communication. The Silk Road existed, and ideas did travel. But the core Stoic and Buddhist texts show no direct borrowing. Whatever convergence there is, it was arrived at independently. That's what makes it interesting. The first place they meet is on the question of suffering, what it is and where it actually comes from. The Buddha's first teaching after his enlightenment is called the First Sermon, delivered in a deer park near Varanasi to 5 former companions. He opens with what he calls the Four Noble Truths. The first, life involves dukkha, usually translated as suffering, but closer in meaning to unsatisfactoriness, a persistent sense that things are not quite right, that what we have is not quite enough, that what we want keeps slipping away. The second, the cause of dukkha is tanha, craving, wanting things to be other than they are, clinging to what is pleasant, pushing away what is unpleasant, refusing to accept what is simply neutral. The fix, in Buddhist terms, is not to get better things. It's to stop craving. Now listen to Epictetus, writing roughly 5 centuries later and 5,000 miles away. He opens the Enchiridion, his handbook of Stoic practice, with a distinction he considers the foundation of everything. Some things are in our power, some things are not. In our power, our opinions, our intentions, our responses, our values. Not in our power, our body, our reputation, our property, other people's behavior, external events. The source of all human suffering, Epictetus argues, is the confusion between these two categories. We suffer because we treat things outside our control as though they were inside it. We want outcomes we cannot guarantee. We cling to circumstances that are not ours to keep. We resist what is simply happening. The fix, in Stoic terms, is to stop wanting what isn't yours to control. Read those two teachings side by side, and the structure is identical. Suffering is not caused by what happens. It is caused by the relationship the mind forms with what happens. The craving, the clinging, the resistance, that is where the pain actually lives. Change the relationship, and you change the experience, regardless of the external circumstances. This was not a common idea. Most philosophical and religious traditions locate the problem in the world, in sin, in fate, in injustice, in the behavior of others, and propose solutions that operate on the world. Buddhism and Stoicism both located the problem in the mind's response to the world. That's the move. And they both made it. The second convergence is on impermanence, and it's even more precise. Marcus Aurelius returns to this theme obsessively throughout Meditations. Everything passes. Everything that exists will cease to exist. The greatest emperors, the mightiest empires, the most celebrated philosophers, all gone. Even the memory of them will eventually fade. This is not written as a lament. It's written as a practice. Look at what is, he writes, and see it already passing. The thing you hold has already begun its departure. The person in front of you will one day not exist. So will you. For Marcus, the contemplation of impermanence was not morbid. It was clarifying. If everything passes, then the loss of any particular thing is not a catastrophe. It's just the nature of things becoming visible. Grief is appropriate. Clinging is a misunderstanding. Buddhism calls this anicca, impermanence. It is one of the three marks of existence, the fundamental characteristics of everything that arises. Nothing that comes into being stays. The pleasant experience ends. The painful experience ends. The self that seems to be having the experience is itself a process in motion, not a fixed thing. Clinging to any of it, good or bad, is grasping at water. The practice is to see clearly that everything is already in motion and to stop spending energy trying to hold it still. Same observation, same prescription. Marcus arrived there through philosophy and personal grief. He lost colleagues, children, friends to war and illness throughout his reign. The Buddha arrived there through meditation and the structural analysis of experience. The starting points are different. The conclusion is the same word, let go. The third convergence is the strangest and the most philosophically significant. Both traditions have something to say about the self, about what you are, underneath the roles and the habits and the stories you tell about your life. And both arrive at a conclusion that most people find uncomfortable the first time they encounter it. Stoicism teaches that what you call yourself, your body, your reputation, your possessions, your social position, is not really you. These things are external. They can be taken. The real you, in Stoic terms, is the faculty of reason, the hegemonikon, the ruling principle. The part that judges, chooses, responds. Everything else is on loan. Buddhism goes further. There is no fixed self at all. What appears to be a continuous, unified experiencer is a stream of arising and passing phenomena, thoughts, perceptions, sensations, stitched together by the mind into the appearance of a single entity. Anatta. No permanent, independent self. Not that you don't exist, but that what exists is a process, not a thing. Stoicism thins the self down to its rational core. Buddhism dissolves it entirely. These are not the same position, but they are neighbors in a landscape that most philosophies never enter. Both traditions are saying, what you think you are is not quite what you are. And that misidentification, that confusion about the nature of the self, is part of what keeps suffering in place. Now for where they part. Because they do part, and the parting matters. The Stoics believed in the logos, a rational principle ordering the cosmos. The universe is not random, it is structured, purposeful, intelligent at its foundation. The Stoic practice of acceptance is not passive resignation. It is active alignment. You accept what happens because what happens is part of a rational order that you trust. Marcus writes, love your fate, not because everything feels good, but because the whole of which your life is a part is good, even when the part you're living is painful. There is a kind of faith embedded in Stoicism. Not religious faith, no personal God intervening in events, but a metaphysical faith. The universe is rational. Your suffering is part of a larger coherence. That belief carries the Stoic through. Buddhism offers no such reassurance. There is no logos, no rational order underlying events. The cosmos is not purposeful. It is simply arising and passing according to conditions. The Buddhist accepts impermanence, not because the universe is trustworthy, but because resistance to impermanence is itself the cause of suffering. The liberation is not into alignment with a rational whole. It is into clarity, seeing things as they actually are, without the distortions of craving and aversion, without the story of a self that needs protecting. The Stoic finds peace in belonging to something larger. The Buddhist finds peace in releasing the need for belonging entirely. These are different. They feel different to live inside. The Stoic is held by the cosmos. The Buddhist is released by insight. Both arrive at equanimity. The paths that got them there are not the same path. So here's the question the convergence actually raises. Two traditions. Opposite ends of the ancient world. No contact. Same diagnosis of suffering. Same prescription of release. Same insight into impermanence. Same move toward a thinner or dissolved self. Different cosmologies, holding those insights in place. If the conclusions are that similar, one of two things must be true. Either the human mind, when it looks honestly and carefully enough at its own experience, always finds the same things, in which case what Buddhism and Stoicism discovered is simply accurate, the way geometry is accurate regardless of who discovers it. Or the human mind, under enough pressure and with enough time to reflect, always arrives at the same coping strategies, which would mean the agreement tells us more about the structure of human psychology than about the nature of reality. Both possibilities are worth sitting with. The Stoics would probably say, the fact that independent minds arrive at the same conclusions is exactly what you'd expect if the logos is real. The Buddhists would probably say, the question of which one is true is itself a form of clinging. Let it go and see what remains. Marcus Aurelius and the Buddha never met. The conversation between them is still going. You are somewhere inside it whether you chose to be or not. If you had to live by one, the Stoic path or the Buddhist path, which would it be? Not the one you find philosophically cleaner. The one that would actually change how you move through the day. Leave it below. The difference between your answer and someone else's answer is where the real philosophy begins.